you guys enjoy your whatever that is.
All right. Test.
Convincing Idiots, Segment 3, Episode 191. Brian and I here celebrating and commemorating Memorial Day 2024. If you're listening on the Monday that this drops, we definitely want to thank everyone who served, past, present, future, and remember the ones who did not unfortunately make it home, that gave the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Definitely want to mention that.
Absolutely.
There's no proper segue from that event, Brian, so this awkwardness will be my segue. Now, starting back in, like, I'd say vaudeville, stage shows, up in throughout silent films, into TV, into modern day streaming, you have seen comedy duos on every ounce of entertainment. Every place that there was comedy, you had two people that gelled so well that they become iconic, that they transcend comedy, time, and space. That might be a little much, but what it does is brings us to our Mount Rushmore of comedy duos. Brian, these can be from screen, film, wherever. It is your personal Mount Rushmore of comedy duos. Who do you have on your list as number one?
I'll give you one here. Mine's like in no particular order.
Yep, okay. Mine either.
Okay, very good. From classic 1970s Saturday Night Live. Now, this duo, I don't know if they met prior, and they were on the show for several years and made a few films together. Yep. And introduce one of my favorite duo SNL characters of all time, the Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, make my list here. These guys just on the show, and certainly as the characters Jake and Elwood Blues, just worked so well together. They were great friends off screen, certainly, and such a tragedy we lost John Belushi so early. It would have been interesting to see what they could have done together.
Yeah, they would have spent their whole life together.
They would have.
Making magic.
Absolutely. And very possible that John Belushi would have been in Ghostbusters versus Bill Murray, who was the original thought to play that character. But anyway, just those two work well together, and the Blues Brothers is one of my favorite comedy movies of all time. There you go.
I like that.
Start there. Sure.
Good first pick. I'm going to start. I'm going to start modern.
Sure.
This duo, they were on Mad TV together, and then they ended up getting their own show on Comedy Central, sketch comedy show. I'm going with Key and Peele.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
The show didn't last, super long, like maybe a Saturday Night Live or whatnot. But the cultural impact that those two had is immense. To this day, it is one of those, like Chappelle shows, that people quote on a daily basis, given certain situations. It's one of those shows that you can just pull up and have in the background. You're going to laugh your ass off. Very entertaining, and those two together are magic. So I'm starting out with Key and Peele.
Very good. Excellent. Now, as a kid, there's certainly a lot of classic duos. I'm sure some will be on our list there as well. But one of the earliest duos that I recall watching in movies, which I probably shouldn't have seen, didn't really understand the humor at the time, but it was on cable and it was funny. Why was it funny? I wasn't exactly sure, but I could get the gist of it. Cheech and Chong, Dean. So, certainly all the movies they had back in the 70s were on cable as a kid. As I got a little older, certainly you understood fully what was going on there. But those guys, even now, they're still doing things together.
Yeah, they're back on
bits.
stage. Yeah, they broke up for a bit. When throughout the probably late 80s, throughout the 90s, they were estranged from each other. But they became older guys, and but let bygones be bygones. Now they do stage shows together and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, those guys just work super well together. They seem like they genuinely like each other, like they're genuinely good friends. And the whole marijuana, culture and getting high and everything. Certainly now
it's legal, so,
more prevalent than ever, probably. But movies are goofy and everything. But just again, it's just their play off each other was just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. My number 2, I'm going to go back in the Wayback Machine. I'm going to, they, again, started in vaudeville, worked their way up through different movies. They even encountered some, a Mummy,
yes,
Dracula,
all of them.
Frankenstein, all of them. Abbott and Costello is my number 2 pick. Since I was a kid, I've always been a huge fan of black and white comedy, the old vaudeville show, stemming from vaudeville show, I should say. The Three Stooges, again, they're 3, so I can't put them on the list. There's not very many, triple threat groups. So I'm at least going to give them a sneaky honorable mention right now. But yeah, Abbott and Costello, from when I was a kid watching the quote unquote monster movies on Saturday mornings. And even, I think I learned about it. Probably the most people learn about them is Who's on First. Bit that they did that has become iconic. Other people's done it, copied them or paid homage to them, should I say. But yeah, Abbott and Costello has always been one of my favorites.
Very good. That bit there, arguably from a comedy bit, one of the most recognizable of all time. If you say Who's on First, you probably know. You've heard of it. You kind of get an idea of what it was. Yeah, just as that bit has transcended for years and years and years.
And a lot of people has tried, but they have redone it and done the bit for whatever shows.
Right.
But the timing that those two had, the chemistry that they had in their reactions to each other, it's unmatched.
Yes, very good, excellent. I'm going to give you these are 2 older gentlemen that kind of found their way to each other over the years, and to 2 of them together, now in their own individual rights, probably on your list too, Dean, but in their own individual rights, fantastic. Yes, both, fantastic comedy geniuses, stand up and shows and whatnot. And together they're on Only Murders in the Building, Dean. So Steve Martin and Martin Short, of course, they do tours together and everything else. But the 2 of them, I know we love that show, and there's a 4th season that's coming out.
They're filming it now.
Yeah, that's going to be on probably for a minute. I really enjoy that. So
they said they're willing to go on forever.
Sure, they. That's another one. It seems like they genuinely like each other. They're genuine friends, and they just play so well together. Yeah, just fantastic. And they both can have their, straight man, funny man type of stuff. Martin Short is really the comedic portion of that there. And Steve Martin is
Right.
more of the straight man in that role. But great. It just works so
But
well together.
the way it works, I mean, just Steve Martin, the way he does a straight man, it's a goofy straight man, but
Right.
he's so goddamn talented when it comes to comedy that it's the perfect straight man.
Yes.
Like there's something, you watch some people that in comedy that do the straight man, and it's almost like they're doing a bit. Like his timing is just ridiculous, especially put on, opposite of Martin Short. It's just crazy. Those geniuses.
Yeah. I mean, just down to the facial expressions and the physical comedy. That's seamless, it looks like, for those guys. Yep.
Absolutely. All right. That was literally going to be my next one. So
Sure.
I pulled somebody off the bench there that would have been my number 6 if we were going. Okay. So I'm going to pull them up here. Let's go some females in this party here. Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
From not only just their the Saturday night live update, the weekend update desk, but like the shit they've written together, the movies they've written together, the TV shows they've written together. And again, their chemistry on screen as well, but their writing is a lot of where I put them as a comedy duo.
Sure.
What they've accomplished, but again, you go back to Saturday Night Live. They were the first ones to do the 2-man anchors since it was Chevy Chase and Jane Curtin. And they knocked it out of the park. Their chemistry is just the back and forth on it. Them both playing the straight man, right? As that requires. But yeah, it's just they're again. I know we're going to end up saying this a lot throughout this, but comedy genius.
Yeah, but they've hosted together like the Golden Globes and different award shows. Again, just great. I really miss seeing them on SNL for sure.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's good. Yep. Let's see here. Another kind of an older one here. It's maybe early 80s. These two guys started to get together and make a couple movies. Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Right. So, close to happening in Blazing Saddles, where Richard Pryor he helped write that movie, and Gene Wilder, they get one of his best roles ever in movies. But then they went on to make a couple of movies together, notably Stir Crazy, where they were both arrested. They were accused of robbing a bank and both thrown in jail. Does that movie hold up necessarily?
That was Gene. One was blind, one was deaf, or
that was
something like that.
Hear No Evil or something like that.
Hear No Evil, See No Evil.
Yeah, Richard Pryor was blind.
Yeah,
and Gene Wilder was deaf in that movie. That was also funny.
I loved that movie as a kid.
Yeah, and there weren't. Thinking back here now, there weren't a lot of duos where it was different races necessarily. So again,
sure.
It just didn't happen, right?
Right.
Those two guys.
That's how society was.
One of the first that I could think of that were two comedic geniuses in their own right that got together and had success together. So, just funny stuff. But Stir Crazy as a kid was one of my favorite movies. Again, like I said, does it hold up? I don't know. Maybe not necessarily everything today, but still very, very funny. Those guys were just played off each other so well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So my next one from the 90s, we lost one of them a little too soon, quite too soon. Chris Farley and David Spade. Again, stemming back from Saturday Night Live. Then they started doing movies together. Tommy Boy to Black Sheep. Tommy Boy is definitely, even now, you don't even need more time. is a classic film. It is a comedic, comedy classic film for the ages.
Mm-hmm.
It still holds up to this day. Their chemistry, their back and forth, even if you watch like interviews or behind the scenes stuff, their chemistry just as friends is insane. Like, how ridiculous would it be to hang out with those two in real life?
Man.
Just so funny. Them back and forth. And they do what friends do. They were busting each other's balls like we do here. They're just super funny at it, and we're mediocre.
Right. Yeah. Very good. A newer one as well. They made a couple of movies together. One kind of a clunker, which I have not even seen yet because it had such terrible, horrible reviews. But the other one I have definitely seen several times in the Step Brothers versus the Sherlock Holmes movie. But Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Again, the fact that they did a couple things together, put them on my list here, but those two and Step Brothers.
Talladega Nights.
Yes, that's right. Talladega Nights.
Yep.
That's right. Again, both of them in their own right, just
when you put them together.
Yeah, almost trying to one-up each other, sort of, but just they're both so damn funny individually. And Step Brothers to this day is one of my favorite comedies. It's just so stupid and ridiculous, but heartwarming and everything else. But it's just fantastic, super quotable, and again the physical comedy, expressions, every scene together with them is just that. It's just fantastic. You couldn't make a movie like those. Probably Talladega Nights and Step Brothers were overall it's like it's a kind of a not the best script necessarily, but those guys took those goofy movies to a whole other level
if you would have replaced
comedy.
One of them, it might not have worked.
Nope, wouldn't have worked as much. You're right. There you go. That's my 5. Good.
All right, my number 5. We've gone back in time. We've gone current.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gone reality. Let's go to a different universe, shall we? Let's go to the Muppet universe. Let's go Stadler and Waldorf, the two old men up in the seating, the balcony seating, watching the Muppet Show throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s, making fun of the Muppets any chance they got. The chemistry was off the chart. You could tell that they were friends outside of that show, and it really comes through. Yeah, whoever wrote for them and whoever did that it was just, I loved them as a kid, and I loved them as a duo. And when else am I going to be able to put Stadler and Waldorf on any list that we do? So I'm using it for my number 5.
I love it. That's great. You're right. Without them, the Muppet Show was not as funny. That's for sure.
Absolutely. You look forward to that cutaway.
Yes, that's right. The cutaway, the whole thing. And it's like I don't think as a kid I necessarily appreciated it as much, but as you get older, you appreciate that humor. And honestly, as an older person, that's your buddy.
You identify with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your buddy. You guys are getting older. You've been friends for many, many years, and you enjoy still hanging out together, and you enjoy cutting on something
anything in
together. Yeah. You strive for a friendship like that, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And eyebrows.
That's good. Sure. Absolutely. That's great.
Brian, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. Do you want to go back and forth or rattle them off? How do you want to do this? We got time.
Yeah, we go back and forth then.
Back and forth?
Yeah, what the hell?
Or the female duo, fictional, but Penny Marshall and Cindy is Laverne and Shirley on the Laverne and Shirley show. Again, great show. On for many years.
Masturbated Incorporated.
That's right.
I think I
And it-
don't know if that's the words.
That's close.
Close
Close
enough.
enough. Had the glove on the bottle and everything.
Right.
You know?
I thought that's what the Masturbated Incorporated was.
Mhm.
The handle going by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just a great show on several years, and those two again, the characters, the actresses played so well together on that show. So couldn't have one without the other. Wouldn't have been
Starting
as
off
funny at all.
on Happy Days as just bit parts.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
All right. I'm going to go with, which I'm surprised it wasn't on either of our main lists, but you can't do an honorable mention without doing the comedy styles of Martin and Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis on stage, they did movies together, but they did a lot of stage events. The partnership and friendship did not end well, but when they were magic. So
They definitely elevated each other's careers. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I know them. I've heard bits of them. I'm just not as familiar with all the work, so that's why I didn't have it on my list personally. But they're definitely famous comedy duo. Yeah.
I was never the biggest fan of Jerry Lewis and his comedy, but when he gets with Dean Martin, when they do their shtick together, it's funny as shit.
Yeah.
So you need that. To me, Jerry Lewis needed Dean Martin.
I agree with you. Dean Martin would have had a successful career anyway with the singing and variety show and everything else. So you're right.
Absolutely.
Yep. I'm going to give you a local one. A local one as a kid growing up in the 70s, right? So to stay up on a Friday night and watch these two gentlemen out of Cleveland, Ohio. If you could watch the entire movie and their comedy skits in between, that was just a huge, and that was so late at night, it seemed like the time, and to stay up late and watch the entire B movie hosted by these two gentlemen was just an exciting thing on a sleepover or something like that. Big Chuck and Lil John. If you're in this area in Northeast Ohio, you know exactly who those two gentlemen are. They're definitely famous in this area. And there's just two guys, local guys on a local television show out of Cleveland that hosted the B movies. So they would host it. They had those skits in between. It was Houlihan and Big Chuck originally.
So
and then Big
many.
Chuck and Little John. Yeah, go ahead.
I've stolen so many of those. Not stolen, but I've told, when you're sitting around telling jokes to people, I've told jokes that I saw as skits on Big Chuck and Little John growing up. I would see the skits and just tell it as a joke. And joke, with your buddies sitting around telling joke form.
Yep.
And I'm not giving credit. Nobody takes credit for jokes, like, hey, guy walks into a whatever. Because those jokes are just around, right? They're just, they're passed down from generation to generation. And that's what I did. With Big Chuck and Little John, Ben Frazee, a lot of those skits.
Yeah, Chuck was he himself was Polish, and he didn't hide that fact. So they had the certain ethnic jokes then where he played clearly like a parody of a Polish guy, and there was a lot of skits there, not making fun of Polish people. It was just funny. It just was great. It's a different time.
Did you meet him?
It's just hilarious. I never met him.
I met both of them.
Okay.
Broadcasting school.
You know what? I will say I did meet. I shook the hand of Lil John on the streets of Cleveland once.
Oh, well, see that's even better.
Yeah.
Like we were both doing an event at the same time, so I got to meet him. That's cool to just meet him in the wild. That's even better.
Real quick story, right? So I was working in downtown Cleveland on East 9th Street. East 9th Street's the main street in Cleveland. It's the same street that has Progressive Field, where now the Guardians play, but then the Cleveland Indians play. Yeah, and if you follow East 9th all the way down, you'll run into Cleveland Browns Stadium. So it's like one of the main streets in downtown Cleveland. I worked there for a few years, right? I worked at a bank in a call center. We had to fire a lady, okay, because she was manipulating. She wasn't. Essentially was stealing from the company. Okay, basically, right. So we had to fire this lady, and my assistant manager at the time, Terry, if you, I don't know if you have any listening, Terry, I love you. If you happen to be listening to this, and this woman was crying, please, please don't fire me. She had like an accent too, like a I think it was a Russian accent or something. Please don't fire, please don't fire me. And I'm like, let's just get this over with and get her out of this building. She had her box, the whole thing. And Terry's like, well, where are you parked at? She was like, up the street. And Terry's like, we'll help you carry the boxes. I'm like, ah. So we're walking up the streets of Cleveland with these boxes for this woman, and she's crying the whole time. Teddy, please, Teddy, Teddy, please, Teddy. Like begging, don't fire me, Teddy. Teddy. It's a horrible procession.
Sure, sounds
on
awful.
East 9th Street. I look up, and coming down toward us, wearing a suit, like a 3-piece suit, smiling, happy as could be, strutting, was Lil Jon walking down the streets of Cleveland. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, Terry's ahead of me up here. I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, it's Lil Jon. We had this terrible, horrible experience. I hope he doesn't say anything yep, sure enough, Lil Jon walks by. Terry's like, sir, hi, how are you?
While this woman's crying, you
He's in
guys
the middle
stop to introduce yourselves to Little John. That's and she's like, wait a minute. The fuck? I'm trying to manipulate you guys. The fuck?
That's exactly what happened. He was ahead of me. Woman's in front of me. We're both carrying this woman's boxes. And Terry's like, sir, it sets the bucket box down, shakes Little John's hand. You know what? Now I think about it, I don't know that I shook his hand. I maybe in my head I did, but I definitely said hello to him.
Yeah.
And he just walks by smiling away, just happy. I'm just like, in my head,
has
like,
no
wow.
clue that this woman he just walked by shook hands and said hello with the two gentlemen who were responsible for giving her the worst day of her life.
That's right. But I saw him on the streets. It was super exciting at the time, but couldn't thoroughly enjoy it because we had to fire somebody who was cheating.
How dare her?
Stealing money from the company, basically. Right. So there you have it. Okay.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. My next one in audible mentions, Penn and Teller.
Yes. Very, very good. Very, very good.
I mean, magicians / comedians.
Sure.
I just recently, and I guess he just started doing like different things, but just heard Teller speak. In the last few years, he started doing different things and kind of came out of the character of the silent assistant. That again is that whole Marx Brothers thing. Harpo Marx. He had the horn. That's how he communicated. And there's a lot of old school vaudevillian style to their bit and stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, I love the magic. I love the comedy. They were very funny together. Again, I'm partial to Teller because I love the whole old school aspect of his style. So Penn and Teller.
Yeah, a super good act. I mean, those guys, it was a unique act, and they were fucking good. They are good music.
Yeah, absolutely. Great magicians.
Yeah. I mean, I don't recall seeing any other duo magician act
that
I could think of, let alone a comedy act. Those guys developed such a very unique act that people remembered and talked about, and they had some success. Absolutely, they're probably still doing it, right?
Sure.
I'm imagining.
Yeah, in Vegas. Yeah, I think they have their own place or whatever.
That'd be an act that would, if I was out there and had an opportunity to see, I would definitely see them for sure.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I had. Let's see here. From Schitt's Creek alone, I'm going to give you. I don't know if it's a duo or not, but they work so well together. I'm going to give it to you anyway. Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy, from all the years on SCTV or SCTV, right? And then certainly Schitt's Creek together.
Yep.
As that married couple, those two together, just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic together. So it was very clear on the you get to Schitt's Creek. Some people may not even know that they were on the SCTV. With those guys got their start there. John Candy, Martin Short, for that matter, and some others. Second City Television, others were there as well. That they went on to have very successful comedy careers in their own right. So those two, again, just so good together.
They're the type of comedic couple duo that you might see out in the streets, and you see one of them with their actual spouse and go, wait a minute.
Surprised.
Yeah, you have to stop and go, oh yeah, I guess they're not actually married.
You're right. That's talent to pull that off. Is the realism, the believability that they're in love like that, even though it's comedy, but still, they definitely.
I get stopped on the street all the time and asked, like, "Where's Nick and Brian?" Well, we don't spend like all the time together.
That's right.
And I haven't seen Nick in person in years.
That's right. Yep. We were stopped at a beer tasting event and asked that very question.
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you got
misconception. Yeah. I have got Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter.
Good. Yeah.
All throughout the late night shows, the variations that they've done, their timing together, I loved them. I grew up on Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter. When Andy left, a part of that show to me died a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Conan holds his own, but there was something about that duo that was special.
Yes. Yeah, you think of all the late night pairings, not couples, but pairings, and they were good. They worked. They worked for Johnny and Ed and David and David Letterman and Paul Schaefer. They definitely had a good banter, back and forth.
But those two were a duo,
right? It was David Letterman and Paul Schaefer was talking. Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon. It was just a comfort and a buffer, if you will. But you're right; those two were equally funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Do you have more?
Let's see here. I've got. I had an overlap with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. How about we talked about last week on our favorite black and white shows episode?
Mm-hmm.
One of the shows that made our list. Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance. How about that?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Those two ladies on that
Any sort of trouble that they got into was together on the show. And the timing and chemistry. Yeah, that's a good
Lucy
one.
and Ethel, right? Was it Ethel was the character name?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just fantastic. Yeah, Lucy was always the star, but Vivian Vance definitely knew her role on that. And again, played it so well.
To the T.
Absolutely. Anything else you got?
I had Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, Cheech and Chong. Here's one. I don't know what sort of fan you were, but as a kid, I loved them. Do the names Johnny Brennan and Kamal Ahmed ring a bell?
Was that Harold and Kumar?
Nope. Those were the Jerky Boys.
Oh, Jesus.
The Jerky Boys did, if you're from the 90s, they did the prank call cassette tapes that you could get in DVDs later.
Yeah.
But they would make actual prank calls and record them. Those two were so goddamn funny. They ended up doing the movies and stuff that, that bombed and kind of jumped the shark and whatever. But those first couple CDs of them doing prank calls were insane.
Yep.
As a teenager in the 90s, you couldn't beat it. So yeah, to me, the Jerky Boys, it made my honorable mention list. And then my last honorable mention, Tenacious D.
Yes. Yeah. Jack Black. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, those two are still just as funny together as anything. Again, it's one of those where sometimes to be Jack Black is a little much. But when you put those two together, it works. They complement each other quite well.
Very good. I had to throw Laurel and Hardy on my
Sure.
honorable mention just because of a classic thing. I don't know a lot of their work.
Yep.
but
I
certainly
didn't put
from
them because I thought that you might.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I just thought, again, another couple that worked so well on the show, Jerry Seinfeld and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Again, that was sort of a foursome there. I don't know if you really count that as a comedy duo type of thing, but just
You
from the
might
fact that those
even
two,
argue that it was George and Jerry,
that's a good one
depending on
too.
the scene, depending on the
Yeah.
scene, depending on the situation.
Yeah, that was probably more of a comedy, again, foursome type of thing, but I don't know. All right, good.
Yeah.
So we talked about a couple of things. We've maybe answered the question a little bit already, but what are the qualities, what are the elements of a good comedy duo, Dean? What do you think?
Chemistry. There's some of these that in real life probably aren't the best of friends, but their chemistry on stage, timing is a huge part. I think timing is up in the top 3 ideas of what makes it.
Mm-hmm.
Both have to have that. Both of them have to have everything that I'm describing individually, and it almost comes in like a Voltron situation where they together form this mega comedy thing. Yeah, so comedy, it's the timing and the chemistry is what you need.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think part of it too is each person knows his or her role in the duo
good.
and thoroughly embraces it and is not trying to change that role. If the one person is the funny one,
right,
and you're more the straight person, you allow that to happen because you realize that together it works so well. You're not trying to one up the other one. It just and that's what works.
You know how to.
Go ahead.
Well, it's almost sometimes harder probably for the straight man, given that you have to have the timing and the wherewithal to set up the joke.
Right.
Because especially if you're doing improv, and again, what do I know from anything, but just from what I witnessed, you have to, in improv, you have to like do this, like you're setting it up. Like you know how good your partner is, so you know what to say because you're almost the writer in that sense. Because you have to set up the straight man line to get him to go there. You know what I mean? You're coaxing or directing as a straight man.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, and then some of these guys are comedic talents in their own right. They're powerful enough to be the comedic actor, but they are fine in that role with another person to be the other, to be more the straight person or something like that. Again, they like a Steve Martin is a guy like that. That strikes me. He's certainly powerful enough. He could be the funny, and he has. He's been in movies. He has been the comedic person, like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and a few other things he's been in where he's the funny one and others are the straight people, the jerk, sure. But he understands in that role with Martin Short, Martin is the goofy, funny one, and he could be humorous in his own way. So, yeah, all very good points. Yep. All right. Well, another duo out there, Dean, that supports each other and understands his own role in the business and it creates success together are our friends at Golden Heart Tattoo.
Scott and Greg.
That's right, Scott and Greg. Scott's more the goofy one there, I think, and he's okay with that, I think.
Sure,
you know? And that's fine. But if you want to watch some, speaking of comedies, you want to watch some very strange, movies and comedic movies and so forth, to get yourself a wonderful tattoo, go check our friends out at Golden Heart Tattoo. Find them at Golden Heart Norton on Facebook and ORTON, or just give them a call at 234-706-2982 and tell them you would like a tattoo watching an Abbott and Costello movie or something like that.
That's
I'm sure
good.
they
I
would.
like that one.
Yeah, they would be just fine to accommodate your ask.
Definitely.
All right. Well, Dean, like every comedy, every good comedy, it does come to an end. And as has our episode 191, sir.
191. Creeping
That's
on
right.
200.
Sure is. And we'll talk more about that, by the way. So if you happen to be in the Northeast Ohio area, you may have an opportunity to come out and see us for episode 200. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. So probably we think now we're working on this here, but there may or may not be a parade.
Maybe
in downtown Barberton, Ohio. Could be. We're really pushing to have like some type of a float type situation, and or key to the city type thing.
There's definitely going to be like a Tijuana donkey show.
Sure.
That I already have that set up.
Mm-hmm.
Nick has I already got Nick the donkey costume and everything, so it's going to be fun.
Excellent. Yeah. So we'll tell you more details as we get closer to that monumental accomplishment. Yep. So, as a reminder, again, you might be listening to us or listen to podcasts. Check us out all major podcast platforms. Give us a follow, share, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. Find us on our Linktree page, Linktree Convincing Idiots website, convincingidiots.wordpress.com, YouTube at Convincing Idiots. Just tell a friend. We appreciate it. And have we convinced you that we are one of the greatest comedy duos in the top 5 million podcasts of all time?
If not, definitely the trio.
Hey, did you like that video? You know you did, and we know you did. So stop screwing around and go like that video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for some more.
Ham gravy.
Absolutely.
Some pop culture headlines and our Ask an Idiot segment after the break.
After the break.
That's right.
All right.
What's going on with the cat?
Something up again outside of it while we were doing that. Then he brought the millipede thing in. Oh,